I am the machine that made man fly with metal wings, Wright Brothers and the flight at Kitty Hawk. I was born from the heart of a spruce tree that had grown for decades in the forests of Ohio, my grain running straight and true through what would become my 8-foot wingspan. In the modest bicycle shop at 1127 West 3rd Street in Dayton, Ohio, the Wright brothers shaped me with the same careful hands that had crafted countless bicycle wheels and repaired the dreams of their neighbors. It was the autumn of 1903, and I felt their dreams flowing into my wooden fibers with each deliberate stroke of their planes and sanders. Orville ran his fingers along my surface, checking for the slightest imperfection, while Wilbur calculated angles and pitch with meticulous precision that bordered on obsession. They had studied birds for years, spending countless hours at Huffman Prairie watching hawks and eagles, understanding that flight wasn't just about raw power, it was about the delicate dance between lift and thrust, between ancient dreams and modern engineering. I watched them work late into the nights, oil lamps casting dancing shadows on the workshop walls filled with tools and half-built inventions, their conversations a mixture of technical precision and soaring imagination. The brothers had already failed with their first 2 gliders at Kitty Hawk in 1900 and 1901, but each setback only strengthened their resolve. They built their own wind tunnel, testing over 200 wing designs, and now they were crafting me with revolutionary precision. Unlike the pusher propellers others had tried, I was designed to pull the aircraft forward, my blades carved with a subtle twist that would grab the air and thrust us into history. They carved me to be more than just a propeller. I was to be the wooden heart that would push their flying machine through the air with unprecedented efficiency. My body held within it the whispered hopes of humanity's oldest dream, to soar like the birds overhead, to break free from the earthly bonds that had held our species since time immemorial. Through months of careful crafting, wind tunnel tests, and endless calculations late into the night, I absorbed their determination. Every curled shaving that fell from my surface carried with it a piece of their vision, a fragment of the impossible, made tangible through sweat, tears, and unwavering belief. As winter approached, I felt the anticipation building like electricity in the air. The brothers spoke of returning to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, where steady winds and soft sands awaited our arrival. They had chosen this remote location not for its beauty, but for its isolation and reliable weather patterns. I didn't yet understand the magnitude of what we were attempting, but I could sense the weight of history beginning to settle upon my wooden shoulders, preparing me for the moment that would separate the age of dreamers from the age of flight. The train journey to Kitty Hawk in late September 1903 was my first taste of the wider world beyond the bicycle shop. Packed carefully in a wooden crate with the other components of what they called the flyer, I traveled through changing landscapes that told the story of America itself. My wooden heart beat in rhythm with the wheels on the tracks as we passed. Through Cincinnati, through the coal towns of Kentucky, and into the Carolinas. Through the gaps in my crate, I glimpsed rolling hills, giving way to coastal plains, tobacco fields stretching toward the horizon, each mile bringing us closer to our destined moment. Kitty Hawk welcomed us with its endless skies and persistent winds that sang through the dunes like ancient songs of possibility. The Wright brothers, along with a small team of helpers including the local postmaster Bill Tate and surfman John T. Daniels, assembled their camp near the beach. I watched from my protective crate as they constructed a simple wooden hangar. Their movements, economical and purposeful, born from years of working with their hands. The sound of hammers rang across the dunes, mixing with the constant whisper of wind through beach grass. The smell of fresh lumber mingled with salt air and the distant aroma of wild ponies that roamed the outer banks. This combination created an atmosphere thick with possibility, where the boundary between earth and sky seemed thinner, more permeable. than anywhere else on Earth. As they assembled the flyer with methodical precision, I was mounted with the reverence reserved for sacred objects. Wilbur's hands, calloused from years of bicycle work, were steady as he secured me to the engine that Charlie Taylor had crafted in their Dayton shop. I felt the mechanical heartbeat of the 4-cylinder motor vibrating through the frame, all 180 pounds of it producing just 12 horsepower. But it was enough. The engine hummed with potential energy that would soon flow through me and into the air itself. During the test runs on the hard-packed sand, I spun for the first time with real purpose. The wind caught my laminated wooden blades, and I felt the sweet resistance that told me I was doing what I was born to do, converting rotational power into forward thrust with an efficiency that surprised even my creators. The flyer strained against the restraints they had built, eager to leap into its element. Local witnesses gathered from the nearby villages. Fishermen, lifesavers, curious children, some skeptical, others filled with wonder, but all sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold on these windswept dunes of the Outer Banks. The brothers made careful adjustments, their years of experimentation paying off in small refinements that would make all the difference. I could feel their confidence growing with each test, each calibration bringing us closer to the moment, when theory would become reality, when dreams would take wing. December 17th, 1903, dawned cold and crisp, with a bitter wind blowing at 27 miles per hour across the sands of Kill Devil Hills. Ice had formed in the puddles around our camp, and the brothers' breath came in visible puffs as they prepared for what would become the most important day in aviation history. They had already made several attempts, including Wilbur's unsuccessful flight on December 14th that lasted only 3.5 seconds before the flyer stalled and crashed into the sand. But this morning felt different. The air itself seemed charged with destiny. By 10:30 a.m., a small crowd had gathered. John T. Daniels, W.S. Doe, A.D. Etheridge, W.C. Brinkley, and Johnny Moore. 5 local men who would become the first witnesses to powered human flight. The brothers had sent a telegram to their father back in Dayton, asking him to inform the press, though they expected little attention for what seemed like another experimental attempt. At 10:35 a.m., Orville took his position at the controls, lying, prone on the lower wing, while Wilbur ran alongside, steadying the right wing tip. The engine roared to life with a sound that cut through the coastal wind, and I began my purposeful spin, my wooden blades slicing through the air with increasing urgency. I felt the power flowing through me, all those months of calculation and craftsmanship culminating in this single moment of truth. The flyer began to move along the 60-foot launching rail, slowly at first, then with growing confidence. Orville worked the controls with steady hands. Feeling the machine respond to his touch, I spun faster, my 8-foot blades cutting through the coastal air with mathematical precision, creating thrust that pulled us forward into the unknown. Through my rotation, I could glimpse the ground beginning to fall away. First inches that felt like miles, then feet that felt like triumph. We were flying. For 12 precious seconds that lasted an eternity, we soared through the air at an altitude of 10 feet covering 120 feet of distance. The sensation was indescribable. I felt the wind flowing over my laminated blades in perfect harmony, each revolution pulling us further from the earth that had always bound humanity. The engine's vibrations transmitted through my wooden core, the flyer responding to every subtle movement of Orville's controls like a living thing, learning to breathe in a new element. We landed gently on the sand, with a soft bump that announced the dawn of the age of flight. For a moment, the world stood still, as if even nature needed a heartbeat to process what had just occurred. Then the witnesses erupted in amazement, some cheering, others standing in stunned silence. John Daniels, who had triggered the camera, that captured our historic takeoff was the first to reach us, his face bright with wonder. We had done it. We had given humanity wings. In that brief flight, lasting less time than it takes to tie a shoe, I had pushed us beyond the threshold from impossible to inevitable, opening the door to a new age where the sky was no longer the limit, but merely the beginning of human possibility. 3. More flights followed that historic day, each more confident than the last, each pushing the boundaries of what seemed possible just hours before. Wilbur piloted the second flight, covering 175 feet in 11 seconds. Orville returned for the third, achieving 200 feet in 15 seconds. But it was Wilbur's final flight of the day that truly demonstrated our potential. 852 feet in 59 seconds. Nearly a minute of sustained human flight that seemed to stretch into forever. I spun through each moment, feeling the growing mastery of the brothers over their machine, and through me, over the very air itself. With each flight, the flyer became more responsive, more alive, as if it too was learning the ancient language of wind and wing. The local witnesses stood transfixed, watching humanity cross a threshold from which there would be no return. After that triumphant day, as the brothers packed the flyer for its journey back to Dayton, a strong gust of wind caught the aircraft and damaged it beyond immediate repair. But it didn't matter. The impossible had been proven possible, and the world would never be the same. My life took many turns in the years that followed. I was eventually retired from active service, carefully preserved as a witness to that momentous achievement. From museum displays, I watched as aviation evolved from those tentative first flights to powerful warbirds that would decide the fate of nations, graceful passenger planes that would shrink the globe, and rockets that would carry humans to the moon and beyond. The lineage was clear. Every aircraft that followed carried within it the genetic code of that first flight, the DNA of determined human innovation. Generations of children have gazed upon me with wonder, their eyes reflecting the same dreams that once burned in the hearts of Orville and Wilbur Wright. Teachers have told my story countless times, explaining how two bicycle mechanics from Ohio changed the world with determination, ingenuity, and a simple wooden propeller carved with loving precision. I've become more than a museum piece. I'm a symbol of human achievement, proof that the impossible is merely the untested. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between visitors, when the museum lights are dimmed and the world grows still, I remember that cold December morning when I first tasted flight. I think of all the lives that aviation has touched since then, the families reunited across continents, the aid delivered to disaster zones, the perspectives broadened by the ability to soar above our earthly boundaries. Every commercial flight carrying passengers to distant dreams, every rescue helicopter saving lives, every fighter jet protecting freedom, they all carry within them a piece of that first magical moment when I pulled humanity into the sky. The brothers lived to see their invention transform the world. Wilbur died in 1912, but Orville lived until 1948, long enough to see jets break the sound barrier and rockets reach towards space. He once said that he had lived to see the invention of both the airplane and the atomic bomb, and wasn't sure which was the greater achievement. But I know the truth. We had given humanity the power to rise above its limitations, to see the world from a divine perspective, to touch the clouds that had always seemed beyond reach. I am more than wood and craftsmanship, more than spruce grain and careful calculation. I am the embodiment of human determination to overcome limitation, to reach beyond what seems possible into the realm of the miraculous. In my grain lies the wisdom that dreams, when coupled with knowledge, persistence, and unwavering faith, can quite literally lift us to new heights. The sky was once humanity's ceiling. Now it's merely the first step on an endless journey among the stars. And I was there at the very beginning, spinning the first notes of humanity's song of flight.